With the 2026 NFL Draft now in the books, and the Joneses have made their selections, it had some mixed reviews. While some gave them high praise, as well as some experts gave them middle-of-the-road reviews. But there were still a couple of selections, or maybe for me, just one particular selection, that made me scratch my head. And while many of you watched the show, there was a particular one of you that took exception to what I said or what I posted. Want to find out what my response to what the Joneses did and what my response to the comment is? These stories and more on this post-draft edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dirk! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, you're driving me nuts!
But behold...
Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this post-26 draft edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Again, you are joined by the one and only Mr. CeeLo, and I hope you guys are doing well. I want to give huge gab outs to those out in Texas and Oklahoma through those tornadoes that took place. Hope you guys are safe, and my heart goes out to you in that disaster if you guys sustained any damage. Please stay safe. As we all know, we're in the middle of spring, where especially if my viewers out in Tornado Alley, you guys please be safe. God bless you. And I also want to give a huge gab out to the firefighters down in South Georgia as they continue to battle the fires down towards Waycross, Jacksonville way. Still damage out that way, and there are people who have lost their homes. My prayers go out to you. And also a big gab out to the teachers. Y'all ignore that noise in the background. Somebody wants to rev up their Ford F-150 that with pipes but no speed. But anyway, big gab out to the teachers. Most importantly, my wife, who is a teacher. Big gab out to all you teachers out there. Thank you so much for what you do. The end of the year is coming up, you guys. If you have kids or grandkids that are in school, the school year is coming to an end. Do something nice for a teacher, you guys. They deserve it. They're underappreciated, undervalued, and we love them so much. And I want to give a huge gab out to our hometown boy, Romello Height. I know Cowboys fans, you didn't draft him, but big time gab out to you, Romello. Congratulations, and to all that you are going to do in the NFL as well as in the community when you return. You made us proud, my friend. God bless you. But I want to start with a comment that was made on my previous show, and Katina says, okay, so now what? Draft has happened. Now, do a show eating those stupid words spoken. See, this is the problem with your comment, Katina. First of all, thank you for the comment. If it is, I guess you could say negative, but all I did was put a thumbnail up just saying only Jerry Jones can mess up the first round, and he still messed up those picks. He did get Caleb Downs. I will admit that. That is going to be arguably one of the steals of the draft, but Malachi Lawrence? I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Chasing after ghosts such as Micah Parsons, in my opinion, not relatively a smart way to go, because realistically to me there were better pass rushers on the board, and instead of panicking, and I'm going to be honest with you, you can't chase after Micah Parsons clones. And to me, there was one guy in this draft that I felt like was the guy that the Dallas Cowboys absolutely had to retain or acquire his services. Now, did they do right in trading down? Absolutely. I thought they did a great job trading down. But the problem is you traded down and then you reached for a guy, in which we saw a lot of teams reach for players. And in my opinion, it wasn't a very smart decision to make. I mean, let's take a look at... Okay, the Cowboys selected Malachi Lawrence. And then, of course, you had a guy like Keldrick Falk. Now, I get it. Falk is a much bigger prospect, and he doesn't fit the Michael Parsons bill. But you still had a guy in R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma who kind of fits the same bill, and Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M, and Zion Young. See, Katina, listen, I respectfully will answer what you will address what you said. There's nothing stupid about the things that, expectations that Jerry Jones and the Jones family can make dumb decisions. And like I said, Malachi Lawrence is one of those. And I'm not saying the player is dumb. I'm not saying that. But when you have an opportunity to take a player in who is ranked 9th in his position, 54th rank overall, and you take him 28.
Bruh. Dumb shit! Dumb shit! Dumb shit!
Does that sound like I'm on point here? And it wasn't like it was a crazy rush of edge players coming off the board. So why would you do that?
Bruh.
Damn you!
So Katina, no, I will address your comment, but here's the thing. Make sure I say something, because the only thing I said is Jerry Jones could make a mistake. You can expect anything from the Joneses. And you can thank the Arizona Cardinals for snatching up Jeremiah Love, because let's not be in denial. If Jeremiah Love would have been at number 5, number 6, Jerry Jones is coming up to get that pick. So please, don't chastise the stupid comments until you have real reasoning to, because there's nothing stupid about what I said. Now, the thumbnail might have pissed you off, but let's keep it in perspective. You clicked on it. And there was some truth to what I said. Did a good job trading down. Did a bad job with this player selection, because you could have gotten Malachi Lawrence later. You seriously could have. 9th best player in his position. But, however, let us take a look at what the Cowboys did do. Now, I said on the show that I felt like Caleb Downs would be available in this position. Because, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they're sitting here talking about, you're seeing a lot of people that are saying that the Cowboys absolutely killed this draft. I'm not going to sit here and going to go that far. But Caleb Downs being available at number 10 is not surprising to me because of the value that the safety has in this game. But here's the reality. If Caleb Downs was Nick Emanrory's size, he probably goes top 5. But better yet, probably top 3. 40 time was not impressive overall. But Caleb Downs' ability to do the things that he does, which is, play one-on-one with tight ends and possible some slot receivers, and then be like a quarterback, Luke Kuechly-ish type player on the field, being able to diagnose plays, is absolutely paramount to a Cowboys defense that has been decimated by injuries and by free agency, and not very good play as of late. And some of that has to do with the lack of a pass rush. So, Caleb Downs can only be as efficient as the pass rush, as we saw at Ohio State. But I like the prospect. I love the pick. Like I said, he's got the quarterback on the defense type of ability. Like I said, he's one of those guys that you can leave on the field, put him in a 3-down safety. He's one of those guys who can play close to the line, whether it's coverage, whether it's blitzing, run support, you name it. The Cowboys got a really good football player where he can just be around. He just has a nose for the ball. And that's what the Cowboys need. They need a guy who is capable of being that guy that can be around the football and make plays on the ball. Absolutely a good pick here. I think ultimately you're in a position where you look at this and you say, hey, let's trade up. Let's get this guy. And they made a good move. I cannot sit here and say when he was available in that position, you trade up and you snag him. Excuse me, at 11, my bad. You jump up and you snag this kid. It was an absolutely great selection by the Dallas Cowboys. In my opinion, I still thought the rival Giants should have snatched him at number 10, but that's a story for another day. But then, like I said, let's take a look at Malachi Lawrence. I think this was a situation where you were so busy trying to snag a guy that fit the Micah Parsons build at 6'4", 253 pounds. A kid out of Central Florida. He has a high motor. That's a good thing. That's what Micah Parsons brought to the party. But the difference was Micah Parsons was initially a linebacker. Cowboy fans, think back real hard. Parsons was placed at edge because you guys were slim in a certain week at edge. You didn't have a starting edge that week. You were low on the depth chart. So what did you do? You took Micah, improvised, and it worked out pretty well. So you stayed with it. You essentially had to go out and find another linebacker to fill his spot in which he went to edge. And I think they backed and forth him a little bit, and then they finally laid him at edge full time. But his length is a good thing that they talk about, and he plays with active hands to keep linemen from locking in on him. Very good fluidity, displaying ability to bend and dip while continuing his forward momentum, slipping past blockers. That's a good, what I call a combination when you get a guy that you're looking for in a pass rusher. Now, particularly, you want a guy that has the quickness to shoot the inside gaps at the snap and execute stunts. He does do that. But I think the question I have is he just a pure pass rusher, or is he like a wild card like Michael Parsons was? See, Michael Parsons was so disruptive because he came so wide open. He really was not what you call a pure pass rusher. He was just one of those guys that he didn't have what you call a specific formula. He was going to blow past you. He was going to use a small weapon, what I would call a small list of weaponry to get around you. Offensive tackles were so terrified of his speed getting around the edge and possibly beating you to the inside, whether it's with the loops, stunts, you name it. They had to watch so many different things, and before you knew it, and his quick first step was just absolutely devastating. And it says against the run, Lawrence can stack the end at times, overpower tight ends, and closes well in pursuit and has the quickness to make plays in space. Now, that's the positive on the run game, because not more like less, you get these 6'4", 250-pound edge guys, or even smaller. They can't set the edge. We've seen a ton of guys that are getting drafted as edge rushers, but they're basically situational guys. Now, if Lawrence can become that Micah Parsons guy on those third and longs or those pass situations, you've got yourself a pretty darn good player. However, I still think there were other guys in this draft that should have went ahead of him. Now, if this turns out to be Micah Parsons 2.0, which I'm not sure, that's pretty much what we're looking at. If you're a Cowboys fan, that's what you're looking for. But I see a guy who, unless they can, in a lot of pass rush situations, send more guys or confuse the offensive line, this is going to be a project. I know what you're going to say. First round picks can't be projects. I get it. But you're asking a guy that's 6'4", 253 pounds to come in immediately and be Micah Parsons. They're going to have high expectations. And I'm not sure this would, I hope for Cowboy fans' sake that this is the right selection, because right now you got a lot riding on it. I mean, you did well in the draft, to say the least, but this is the one that really had me scratching my head and why I could not give this complete Dallas Cowboy 26 draft an A+, an A. I couldn't even give it an A-. As much as Caleb Downs boosted, it was just like the Las Vegas Raiders with Fernando Mendoza. Your first pick can't be just the best pick you have. You gotta follow it up with some every draft has to have in my opinion, every draft has to have its tone. It can't be all over the board. You got to select a specific side on the defense or the offense, or you could just go offense or all defense. But it has to be a particular type of thing that you're going after in that draft. That's just the way I perceive it. And then you go and you get Jayshon Barham out of Michigan, another edge with the 28th pick in the third round, which would have been the 92nd pick because they did not have another pick in the second round. 6'3", 240. See, now you've got, it looks as though you're trying to come up with that NASCAR pass rush. A lot of fast little guys. 6'3", 240. This pick here kind of reminds me of it's kind of like a counter to what the Giants were doing when they took Arvell Reese. He's lined up as edge rusher at Michigan, and he's also an off-ball linebacker. See, now you're going to start seeing this more, these hybrid linebackers, where you're not just seeing guys that are covering and blitzing, you're seeing and stopping the run. Now you're going to see more guys that are coverage-based type linebackers, and they're blitzers. I know that's like, oh, well, we saw this back in the day. Well, no, now you're seeing it more at both levels. You're seeing it at the college level, and you're seeing it more at the pro level. Guys like this are getting drafted at a much higher clip. Now, granted, the third round is not considered high, but guys, let's keep it in perspective. Your third round guys have to be productive for it to be a productive draft. Now, do I think this was a good selection? You could argue that it was. And you could argue that it wasn't. But the Cowboys are thin at edge. They need some fresh blood down in that dang trenches. You got to be able to get some pressure at least on the outside, and then you can start pushing the pocket. But if you're not getting quarterbacks to step up, it doesn't matter what you do in the interior. It just does not matter. You can do whatever you want. But if you cannot get pressure on the outside or have it fast enough guys on the edge that when they go outside and they can come back inside to make a difference, it doesn't matter. I do like it, but at times Barham can rely on his power and his strength, so he's going to be a product all through the year if he gets the starting nod. He will have to get some refinement of his pass rush moves, kind of like what Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons still, in my opinion, has not developed a arsenal of moves. So I know y'all are tired of hearing the Micah Parsons analogy, but it just looked like that was what Jerry Jones was shooting for in this draft, was trying to find the 2.0 version of this guy. Effective as a linebacker at the next level, so a position switch to primary play off the ball edge should benefit him. And as I said, to me, he's probably going to be a situational pass rusher, and I think a lot of what we saw in the draft, whether it was Arvell Reese or Jayshon Barham, we're going to see a lot of guys that may not fit the bill of pass rush, or we may see Barham playing a lot of duo. Some off-ball linebacker and some pass rusher, or he may end up playing the off-ball linebacker and coming on blitzes. The NFL. I'm probably going to do a show on the revolution of the defense, because every time the offense takes a step and makes changes the game, you get defenses changing the game, and you got guys like Arvell Reese, you got guys like Kyle Hamilton, Nick Eamon-Rory, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. No, he hasn't played in a full season and a half. These are guys that play. They're blitzers, great cover guys. They can line up in the slot and play coverage. They can blitz, and they can also drop back into zone coverages. These are the guys that are these positionless chess pieces, as I call them. These are guys that are going to be absolutely invaluable in the next 5 to 6 years to come. These are your guys that are going to be going in the top 10. That's why you see guys like Caleb Downs that are selected as high as they are. There were a couple more players that you could have argued should have went higher, but other teams just weren't as enamored with them. And then let's go to Drew Shelton, who was taken in the 4th round, 12th selection. 6'5", 313 pounds, another edge, and as you see, offensive tackle. That was a position that really needed to be addressed by the Dallas Cowboys, and ultimately what is really been a staple for the Cowboys over the past 15 years is they had really good offensive lines. Well, a lot of those guys like oh gosh, the guy out of Notre Dame, Zach, I can't remember his name, but he ended up, I think he retired if I recall correctly. You're seeing guys that are no longer on this team anymore, so they're moving on to retirement. And see, before you realize it, you look up 10 years. Your linemen are not your really good linemen last 10 years, more or less. If you can get 10 years out of a really all-pro Zach Martin, that's what his name was. You get 10 years out of a lineman, that's usually a career. As we saw, Justin Simmons for the Broncos retired. So, realistically, guys, you're looking at it. Now, do I think Drew Shelton can be a starter? The scouting report on him is he's smooth kicking out to meet speed rushers and can do a good job riding them past the quarterback in pass protection. He has the foot speed to play balanced and mirror defenders, but struggles to anchor, locking his feet in the ground and holding the point of attack. In the run game, his output is inconsistent. That is not good for a Dallas Cowboy football team that has not ran the ball efficiently the last couple of years. And realistically, you're going to have to, at the belief that you're going to have to anchor this with Dak Prescott really only having a couple more seasons. And not to mention, when you look at the idea that George Pickens is not going to be signed long term, this feels more like a boom or bust season for the Cowboys. Because I'm going to be honest with you, what are you going to do at receiver when George Pickens is gone? This is a golden opportunity. You got a golden opportunity when this guy came here. Okay? I understand that he is a big need, but I'm going to be honest with you. When the writing was on the wall, and I said this on one of my previous shows, if I recall correctly, CD Lamb is approaching 29. George Pickens is about 2.5 years, maybe 3 years younger. And you're locked into him. I'm going to be honest with you. At some point, you got to want to get younger yet again. Do you guys remember what happened to Amari Cooper when they signed CD Lamb? Amari Cooper was out the door. We're in the same situation right now with CD Lamb. And the injuries bug has really started to bite CD Lamb lately. Now, I get it. They're tied into a lot of money. And there's a lot of you guys out there that are really soft on him. And listen, I think CD Lamb's a great player. But you have to start to think about the future at some point. Because realistically, you got to protect the franchise. And I know people are all big about loyalty, and CD's been loyal. But when you start looking at a guy like Drew Shelton, is he going to be a guard, or is he going to kick in and be a guard, or is he going to be asked to be a tackle? Just food for thought, because if guys are able to obliterate him because he doesn't have a consistent base, I'm just going to be honest, a 4th round tackle feels more like a guard to me, or a depth piece. Just saying, Cowboy fans. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. Then we look at a prospect that I really thought that if this guy can get around the right people and get into the right coaching, right type of coaching, this guy can be a star. And that would be Devin Moore out of Florida. 6'3", 198 pounds. Now, he didn't run an exceptional 40-yard dash, but that length, guys. Any of you watch my show, you guys know I absolutely love long, tall, aggressive cornerbacks. And when I watched him at Florida, his 40 time is not absolutely crazy, but he uses his size to jam his receivers early in their routes. And at him being 6'3" and being able to get that long reach out on receivers, it really throws off the timing. And when you're dealing with quarterbacks in your division like Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, and you really have to, and even Jaden Daniels, I'm sorry. And when you really start to think about these much smaller receivers that he would be dealing with, if you can get 2 years, get this guy to get his footwork right, and possibly get him to be able to position himself on these shorter routes. Now, he does a great job getting his body in there to take on contested balls. He's definitely a guy you want to put in opportunities where there's Hail Marys, because he's very big on going up and getting balls, but his best attribute by far is his run support. A lot of people discuss corners that don't tackle. This is a guy that does that. Worst case scenario, you put him out there on first downs, and now while his long speed is, like I said, not impressive, he's ran a 4.5, but if you can get him out there on rundowns and get him to help, seal the edge, this is a guy that'll stick his nose out there and make some plays. Possibly you could send him on third downs, put him in the slot, and send him on blitzes. I mean, this is a guy, in my opinion, he could start year one. Get him to work on that technique, and possibly in games where you guys are not going to win or the game's out of hand, get him some reps. Get him some reps, because I'm going to tell you, you get this guy going. This is one of my sleepers in this draft. His length and his size is going to be absolutely paramount, especially looking at the division of smaller wideouts that you guys will face off with. And then, not to mention, you got the bigger wide receivers that you're going to face against the competition in the NFC. Good pick, in my opinion. And then another edge guy out of Alabama, L.T. Overton, 6'3", 274 yards. I guess you could say he was a disappointment for the Alabama Crimson Tide as he was there, as he only accumulated 7 sacks in 4 seasons. But that entire pass rush at Alabama really lost its bite after the Saban years. But he's one of those guys. He's more of a disruptive force, kind of like Jalen Phillips with the Carolina Panthers right now. He's his what you would call his pass rush win rate and pressures is what gets you. And now I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, the sacks don't get you, but when you get a guy that can basically rush the quarterback, make him speed up, that can be just as effective as a guy that's getting a guy on the ground. He can overwhelm offensive tackles with his power rushing off the edge and push the pocket when he slides inside. See, this is another one of those guys where the NFL is like the NBA in a lot of ways. This is what you call small ball on the line. You take a guy that's like Overton, 6'3", 274 pounds, and instead of putting him on the edge on third and long, much like the Giants, you take and you create that NASCAR. You take the Malachi Lawrence and so on and so forth, and you put these guys on the outside, and then you put somebody like L.T. Overton, who is absolutely much quicker than the guards that are trying to block him, and he can make his way inside, because not only, think about it, your guards are maybe on average maybe 10 to 15 pounds much more mass than your tackles, but your tackles are much taller and with more of a reach and much better athletes for the most part than your guards most of the time. So when you're talking about a guy like Overton, who absolutely has aggressive and very ferocious hands, getting that type of push into it and type of speed against a guard who's really accustomed to getting decent athletic defensive tackles, but not nearly as quick. When you look at guys like Overton, a guy like Overton can get his punch and then get off and through those gaps, especially if the center is not paying attention. So I think this is a very good value pick here. You're talking about 4th round, 37th pick. And, I would say this is one of those back picks. I would say don't ignore ignore the production at Alabama. This is a guy who, in my opinion, slipped through the cracks. Now, if this was like 15 years ago and you don't see a lot of these NASCAR type pass rushes ran on third down, I would say this was a depth piece, and he possibly could be a depth piece. And I just think that you can use a guy like Overton on the inside on those NASCAR. You're going to see more of that in the National Football League going forward. But then we see finally Anthony Smith out of East Carolina. In my opinion, this is just one of those guys that you just select because you have a 7th pick. I can't say very much about him. I haven't done a lot of looking at the wide receiver out of East Carolina. I think you select him as a possible depth piece, possible returner. Not sure he's going to make the team with the depth that the Cowboys already have at wide receiver. But let us go forward and look at some of the grades. Mel Kiper Jr. gave them an A. CBS Sports gave them a B+, while other analysis gave them primary A's and B+, highlighting the strong value. The only value I really questioned was the Malachi Lawrence. That was the one I really questioned. The other guys, you could argue they all were very good value picks. I think primarily that the Cowboys wanted to address a lot of the positions that they did not that they really needed to address, and I think they did that. I think they did a pretty good job of that. As I said, attempting to fix those 2025 defensive weaknesses, and I think a lot of it, when we look back on it, last year's top pick, Siobhan Revel, was a guy that really hurt this team, or one of their top picks, was with his getting back to his injury. He was one of the bottom corners in the league while being ranked as one of the top in this draft class. But this is what I say, Cowboy fans, just be patient. He needed a full year to get back. Most guys that come off injuries, they need a full year. They got to get used to getting hit again. They got to get used to getting that feel again. And then, not to mention, you're talking about the last game you played was in college, and your first game is in the pros back. Your first game back's not in the same speed that you left. It's in a different speed. Okay? Let's look at what the Cowboys now need to address after the 26th draft. Inside linebacker, edge rusher, and running back depth. Defensive line and offensive tackle help is definitely needed for competition in these roles, because you can't just blame the pass rush on the edge guys. You get your tackle position has got to be better. And we look at like I said, inside linebacker has to be a top priority. Even after taking Barwin and trading for D. Winters, the depth behind Overshown, making you have to get that depth right, because another thing that the Cowboys struggle with at that position in recent years has been injuries. Injuries are a part of the game, but the reality of it is depth is so important. In reality, when you draft in these 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, you're not just necessarily looking for gems. You're looking for guys that can come in there, especially at the linebacker position, and absolutely provide you depth. And this is why I will say a guy like Jayshon Barnum is so important, because, yes, he does provide you a extra level when it comes to pass rush, but he also provides you depth at that linebacker position, whether you start him or you have him as someone's backup. Given that you only have 53 guys on the roster, and if you can, the more guys you can get play multiple positions, the better. Now I know I'm of that philosophy. It's difficult to do that, especially if you got a starter. When you lose a guy like this, you lose 2 positions. That's if he's starting in 2 positions, okay? You're not asking these guys to start in 2 positions. However, you do need to be prepared in case the inevitable occurs. And this is the National Football League, and attrition happens. Edge rusher is, even though they still added Lawrence and Overton as well as Barham as a possible option there, the team still lacks an elite guy. So that's why I was so big on Malachi Lawrence being selected here. I still thought there were other playmakers that you could have taken. And like I said, he was only the 9th ranked edge rusher. I get it. You're trying to get that mold of that certain player, number 11. But don't reach because he has the same build and motor. He may not have that same it or that twitch. Running back. Even though Javonte Williams is the primary back, you got Jaden Blue and Malik Davis. Possibly that a vet is needed to add. Guys, look, I am a Carolina Panther guy. I still love Deontay Foreman. The guy has minimal wear on those tires, and he nearly ran. I think he did run for 1,000. He nearly ran for 1,000 yards the last time he was a full-time starter in the Carolina Panthers, and he wasn't full-time because if you remember, he split reps with Chuba Hubbard, as well as he got the late start with Christian McCaffrey. So this is a guy, when he gets a hole, not only is he physical, I think Foreman's over 230 pounds. So I'm going to be honest with you, he's still got some rubber on those tires. Just saying. Cornerback team needs to add players like Siobhan Rebel and, of course, Kobe Bryant to provide competition for depth behind Deron Bland. Now, Siobhan Rebel is a guy that they're going to have to get healthy. Now, he could be a dangerous corner if everything works out. And, of course, Kobe Durant is a guy who came off of a great season last year and whom they were able to add. So, needless to say, the reality of it is the secondary with Caleb Downs, if they can add one more piece via free agency, or maybe just clean up. Hopefully, Siobhan Rebel can come back and play at the level he was at East Carolina. There you go, Cowboys fans. And finally, offensive tackle / the line. There needs to be more reliable depth, especially at the swing tackle. And yeah, you need insurance. There are teams that lose. The Chargers are a perfect example of a team that lost both tackles, perennial All-Pros. You could say. And that was their Achilles heel in the playoffs. It worked well in the regular season, but unfortunately, it did not get them out of the playoffs. And realistically, guys, you can have a great season all you want. Ultimately, the prize is winning the Super Bowl. Let me know what you guys think about my diagnosis of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, many of you are going to say, "Where did you give them a grade?" I gave them a B. Because the Malachi Lawrence selection just did it for me, you guys. I'm sorry. You don't like it? I understand. But let me know what you guys think about it. Make sure you leave your comments below. Katina, I hope you'll leave a comment because I did respond. Any of you guys want to banter with me and comment down below, just be nice. Don't call my comments stupid. I don't call yours stupid. But if you want to go toe-to-toe, we can do that. No, I'm just kidding. But realistically, Cowboy fans, I want to hear from you. Tell me what you think. Or what one of these guys do you think are going to be the steal of the draft? Or do you think I'm wrong about Malachi Lawrence? Tell me why. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, that subscribe button if you like what you see, and that bell notification so you can get all of my other draft analysis shows as they drop. Make sure you go over to the Facebook page, Gridiron Gab Pro Style, and as well join the group, Gridiron Gab Pro Style, so you can keep up with all of our questionnaires and thoughts that come out of our fan base when they drop. Finally, if you want to banter outside of YouTube or outside of Facebook, be sure to look me up at Mr. CeeLo on Instagram so you can keep up with all of my in-season and off-season shenanigans that I will be caught up in. As we get ready to kick off, rookie mini camps? I think that's what they start this weekend. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.